we ensure we have a welfare system, a social security system that genuinely does give security to people, not punish them because of the situation they're in. I see in front of me the sign from DPAC, Disabled People Against the Cuts. I want to say thank you to DPAC for all the campaigning work they've done over the past few years. But I would say there is something beyond appalling when people with serious physical or mental health conditions are passed as fit and available for work when they patently are not, go through the trauma of losing support and losing benefit, and then hopefully winning an appeal sometime further down the line. The humiliation and the stress they suffer has sadly led to some people taking their own lives in sheer desperation. What kind of society are we creating where we drive people to take their own lives because they don't feel they can survive in modern, wealthy, 21st century Britain? Can't we be proud of being a party and a movement that wants to deal with the issues of poverty, deal with the issues of destitution, and have a system that does support people, not punish people when they're going through a hard time in their lives? And then, how the expenditure works out. We have a system that actually subsidises high rents and subsidises low wages. Far better that we don't allow the Tories to steal our language by saying they're bringing a living wage when they're doing nothing of the kind, and instead I accept the TUC figure of £10 an hour minimum wage as a good starting point to improve the lives of an awful lot of people. But there has to be an economy that provides for that as well. And so the economic policy document we presented last week at the Royal College of Nursing building, we put it forward, and in short order it says that we have an unbalanced economy in Britain, we have a gross inequality between the richest and the poorest. The richest 5 families own the equivalent of the total wealth of a fifth of the entire population. You can take many figures from it. When even Oxfam and others point out how grossly unequal Britain is, then I think we should be doing and saying a lot more about it as a party. And those people that say they're intensely relaxed about the super rich and the filthy rich within our society, well, I'm not relaxed at all about that. I'm not relaxed in one iota about that. I want to see a fairer and more equal society. And so we have to look at the levels of taxation, we look at the imbalance of taxation, and we look at the levels of corporate tax evasion that happens in Britain. My friend Richard Murphy has helped us a great deal with this document, calculates at least £50 billion, possibly a lot more, is not collected in corporate taxation. Why do we allow major companies like Boots to remove their head office from the UK to Switzerland in order to pay not 20% or 18% corporation tax, but 5%? If they're making profits and trading in this country, any of them, they should pay their taxes in this country as well in order to fund our services. But we also have an unbalanced economy. There are people in this room, I know many of them, who were here during the miners' strike in the 1980s, who were here during that grotesque period of attacks on working class communities, on attacks on workers' rights, and the destruction of manufacturing industry in Britain. Basically, we haven't got it back. We haven't got it back because, as a society, we've invested or allowed the growth of financial services at the expense of everything else. Don't get me wrong, there's a place for all kinds of service industries, and you do need them. But, and it's a big but, we have a huge tradition of manufacturing, high-quality engineering, brilliant engineers, brilliant scientists and all those. Why don't we, instead of using quantitative easing to help the banks out and they do what they will with it, instead put that money into a national investment bank which can deal with the issues of the need for better rail and other infrastructure in Britain, that can electrify the East Coast West Coast line between Newcastle and Manchester, that can electrify the Midland Main Line, that can improve the transport infrastructure for the whole country, that can invest in the kind of new industries, new engineering, green technology that is so promising and so much part of our future, that can be not afraid of putting public money into industry in order to provide those jobs and the living standards that we all want. These things are possible, but you have to be prepared to intervene. The idea that you walk away because you're a party afraid of your own shadow is really a very bad place to be in. I would also go further and talk about the need for investment in two crucial areas: education and housing. Let's deal with education first. We have great teachers, they get denigrated. We have great schools, great comprehensive schools, they get denigrated. And we have a government that is systemically promoting free schools and academies, charging many people far too much for preschool education and giving some degree of free preschool education to children of the poorest. I want all our children to be able to socialise together in preschool facilities. It's a very important part of understanding life and growing up. So children from all backgrounds, all ethnic communities and all languages come together. It's a very important start and lesson in life. And I want to strengthen the power and the influence and the organisational ability of local education authorities. It's simply not credible that however brilliant Michael Gove was as Secretary of State for Education, he's an unbelievably brilliant man, that he could possibly really manage 25,000 secondary schools across the whole country. I don't think even his capacity reaches to that level. Surely it's much better if you have the family of local schools. Bring the academies and the free schools into the local authority system. Have local authorities, comprehensive schools. And just as a sotto aside, I've got this deeply old-fashioned belief that somebody teaching in front of a class, being responsible for bringing up and educating our children, really ought to be qualified to do the job. Some countries in Europe value university and higher education and value further education. I voted against the introduction of £1,000 student fees. I voted against £3,000. I voted against £9,000. And sure as hell I'm going to vote against the lifting of the cap on fees if that comes about. But we've moved from a situation where my generation had free university education. I didn't take it up, I'm not complaining about that, that was my choice. But we had that opportunity of free university education. It's not my place, or anyone else of my generation, or many in this room, to pull up the ladder on the next generation. When I meet graduates, young graduates who work really hard, left university with debts of 50, 60, £70,000, what kind of start in life is that? And I'm told, well, it's okay, they're probably going to earn more because they're graduates, so we'll bring in a graduate tax. I say two things. One is, we should tax people by their wealth, not their education or their learning. Secondly, that by not reducing corporation tax from 20 to 18%, instead increasing it by the enormous, draconian, massive, greedy, grabbing, grasping, grand total of 0.5%, we could pay for the fees for all our students to go to university. Is that price worth paying? And so, when we're accused of being spendthrifts, okay, I call it investment. Because if somebody is well trained, well qualified, well educated, our children are better taught, our trains are safer, our planes are safer, our society is safer, our world is more sustainable because we have those environmental experts that can help us try and deal with the issues of pollution, climate change and all those other issues. We all benefit from somebody else's education. And there's a really old philosophy I have, that everybody I meet knows something I don't know. I can learn from them. We can each learn from each other. That's what the collective is about. Let's not see everything as a competition to do down the neighbour. We're always much stronger when we do things together, when we march down that road together. It's not else I to say, but I wanted to say something on housing and then one other point. We are going through a housing crisis in Britain at the present time. I find it utterly heartbreaking when families come to me who are grossly overcrowded in a small flat. Children not achieving in school, can't do their homework, can't develop. Family breakup, stress, unbelievable levels of stress because of 3 or 4 teenage children in a 2-bedroom flat, no space to move, no space for normal family life. And then I meet people whose older children cannot leave home because they can't get anywhere to live. And then in my own community, I find families who are put into the private rented sector by the local authority because it doesn't have enough council housing. The rent levels go up, the benefit cap comes in, and they are socially cleansed out of central London and out of London altogether. What are we doing to a whole generation of children and families who are living on 6-month assured short-hold tenancies, moving on, changing schools, moving on, changing schools? What kind of childhood is it if you remember each year by the different school that you went to and the different flat that you lived in? Surely everything that this government is doing on housing is wrong. Wrong to sell off council housing. Wrong to sell off housing association property. Wrong to have permitted development which allows private development to go ahead at the expense of the very necessary council development, and wrong on the rent model they're charging, which will break up so many communities on council estates and elsewhere. Can't we just, as a society, say we want everyone to be decently housed, and we are prepared to invest the money to create the jobs, to build the homes, to bring up our children, to create a better and more cohesive society? Let's use council housing as the basis of improving the housing opportunities and housing options of the majority of people in this country, and in particular the numbers of young single people who have no opportunity to buy, no opportunity to rent because they can't afford the deposit for it or afford the rent that's charged, and no opportunity to access council housing because there isn't enough of it. All of us as public representatives, be we councillors or MPs, have become experts in the science of shortage, the science of allocation. I want to become an expert in the science of building and providing and eliminating that cause and that need. We can and should be able to do it. The last point is the world in which we live. I've been in the Labour Party all my life, and I've been involved in many peace campaigns all my life, against the Vietnam War in the 60s and 70s, and always against the holding of our own weapons of mass destruction called the Trident nuclear missile system. And many in this room, I'm sure, came to that huge demonstration in 2003 against the Iraq War. We didn't stop that war. Maybe we helped to change things in the future. Everyone that came on that demonstration that day learned something from it. Wars are dreadful things. Wars create victims, and wars create victors. Who won the Iraq War? Interesting question. I think it was probably Enron, arms dealers, security companies, and other people that made a lot of money out of the Iraq War. Who lost the Iraq War? Those people that died in Iraq, those soldiers that died from all sides in Iraq, and who continue to lose the war? Those victims of war all over the Middle East. Victims of the Syrian war, victims of the Iraq war, victims of the Libyan war. Those desperate people living in refugee camps in Lebanon, those 500,000 refugees in Libya trying to find a place of safety, and those thousands who've died tragically trying to cross the Mediterranean to get to a place of safety, and eventually some of them have reached Europe. Can we approach a human and humanitarian crisis of the consequences of wars, oppression, and so on around the world with humanitarian, human, and decent language? Don't call people swarmed, don't call people stranded, don't call people all the bad words that we use, and approach it from a humanitarian point of view. I'm not pretending any of this is easy, it's not. It's very complicated and very difficult. But if we approach things on the basis of human values, human instincts, and human development, surely we go a lot further down the road of avoiding the next war and the war after that and the war after that. Surely that is the direction we should be able to and proud to go down. In 2016, Parliament will be invited to renew or not the Trident nuclear missile system. I do not believe nuclear weapons provide security. I support South Africa in divesting itself of nuclear weapons and bringing about a nuclear weapons-free zone all across the continent of Africa, just as the same has been done in in Central Asia and in Latin America. Do we really need nuclear weapons? Do they provide us with any security? I've been at non-proliferation conference treaty review sessions when Britain, France, USA, China, Russia get up and say, we need nuclear weapons for our security. Well, if you go down that argument, every country in the world needs nuclear weapons for its security, because apparently they provide complete security. They didn't do an awful lot of good to the USA in 9/11. They haven't done a lot of good to all the issues that we've faced ever since. Surely we should accept our responsibilities under that treaty, which is not to develop a new generation of nuclear weapons and indeed to take steps towards disarmament. If we save £100 billion on not replacing Trident, that's not £100 billion to spend on anything and everything else. It's a very large sum of money and a very great opportunity to expand and rebuild and strengthen the high technology, high-end engineering base of this country to make things that are safe, socially useful and good for this country and the rest of the world, rather than weapons that can only bring about desperate danger if ever used in destruction. On Thursday we'll be commemorating Hiroshima Day, and I'll be there in Tavistock Square commemorating it, but I'll also be thinking of those people on the Marshall Islands and other places that are indeed victims of nuclear tests. I got an email today from the nuclear test veterans who are still looking for compensation when they were used as guinea pigs to watch nuclear explosions in the 1950s. Let's be a movement and a party that can do things differently and do things better. Let's be excited by all these people that are coming together, looking for a world at peace and a world in sustainability, looking for a society that cares for all and cares for each and the other, and a society that moves forward, not backwards, into individualism, greed, and grotesque inequality. There's too much inequality, there's too much poverty, there's too much wealth in the hands of too few people. It's a basic socialist instinct that you share things out. Those people that founded our movement and our unions in the 19th century were brave people with real vision. Can't we, instead of approaching the next 4 years of saying, okay, you won the election, you're in dictatorship mode for the next 4 years, and say, no, we're going to oppose the welfare reform bill for what it's doing to the poor society. We're going to oppose the austerity that it's doing. And whatever the results, and I genuinely mean this, whatever the results of this process on September the 12th, we keep together. All of us stay together to bring about greater democracy in our society, in our unions, in our party, and in our movement. And all those people that participate in this process are not going to go away and leave it to the Parliamentary Labour Party to decide the future. I think we've uncorked something here. We've uncorked hope. We've uncorked real aspiration. Aspiration for all, not just for the individual. And it's very exciting. It's very hopeful. And to me, this is a summer of hope. Let's make sure we take that forward so we get more and more people with us. So we don't go down the cul-de-sac of blaming minorities for the shortages of housing, doctors, schools, whatever it is. Instead, we collectively, working together, all of us, whatever our background, whatever our faith, working together in strength. That's how we achieve things. That's how we change things. Thank you very much for inviting me tonight.